Glaser's timing couldn't be better. Her next comedy special, Someday You'll Die, drops on HBO this Saturday, May 11th. In the special, the 39-year-old comedian loudly and proudly declares that she never wants to have kids, expressing her raw, unfiltered emotions about aging and motherhood the only way she knows how. "My truth is that I don't have kids, and I really do get jealous when my friends have babies because I don't see them anymore," she tells VF. "The funniest take on that for me is when my friends are trying, I'm like, please don't let this one take." It's a funny thing to admit because it's insane, but I can't help that it did enter my brain, like, oh, I want her to have a kid. Just not yet, because we have a girls' trip coming up. That's not to say Someday You'll Die is only about one thing. In the special, Glaser wisecracks about topics included but not limited to abortion, suicide, autism, gangbangs, heroin, and, yes, there's even a non-terrible trans joke or two. In an age where stalwart comedians like Jerry Seinfeld continually lament so-called PC culture and what they see as the corresponding death of comedy, Glaser is proof that you can still say basically anything you want, as long as it's funny. "It's funny that Jerry says that because he's a clean comedian," she says. "Who is he offending? I don't know. He's mastered the art of being clean, and is as funny as any comic who's dirty." Glaser says that she longs to have the type of clean and accessible comedy act that is de rigueur for Seinfeld, but it's just not in the cards for her. "I can be very filthy and I can be very dark, so I sense that I turn people off a lot," she says. "But I know at my core, I'm a good person. So if I'm joking about stuff, it's just because it's true and I want to draw attention to it. It's not about wanting to hurt people's feelings," she adds. "I want everyone to see what's going on. Let's talk about slaves making our clothes. Open your eyes. Making a joke about them is not going to make them any more slaves than they are. It actually might draw more awareness to it, even though it is under the guise of a joke. At least just acknowledge that slaves made your clothes by laughing at this joke, because it is happening and you know it." The intersection of truth and comedy has long been a hot-button issue, particularly as comics like Husan Minhaj come under fire for embellishing or fabricating stories they tell in their stand-up. Glaser isn't interested in storytelling comedians. "I just do not have the patience for it," but she is interested in truth, even if it's at times unflattering. "I'm never really lying on stage," Glaser says. "People can go, oh, she's just hyperbolizing for the sake of comedy. But I'm not really. Yes, I do turn it up a notch, but it should be obvious, the things in the story I'm lying about." To a savvy consumer of stand-up comedy, you should be able to tell where I'm doing a punchline and then where there is actual storytelling happening. "I like to just start from a place of what's true, because that's, I think, where the funniest stuff is," she says. What's the truest thing that's not being said? And sometimes she can be a little too truthful in her comedy. "I had a joke about how if you're with a group of people, if you have to go to the bathroom and it's number 2, you go fast so people think it's a number 1. You try to go as fast as you can," she says, gaining momentum. "And sometimes it's one that's a little bit more chaotic than other number 2s, but you have to clean it up really fast and just get back out there and get back to your table." She pauses to fill me in on the inspiration for this graphic bit of potty humor. "This was something that was written on stage, because it had just happened to me." You're like, oh my god. You're smelling the air, because you're like, did I not get it all? Is some of it still on my wrist? And I said, a wrist. And the crowd laughed so hard, and I was like, thank you, God.